right, we have a call. Good afternoon to you. This is Newsspin. Rick Wayne, you are on the air.
Hi, Tim.
Hi, good afternoon to you, Rick.
Hello?
Good afternoon. You on the air, Rick?
Yeah, we seem to be having problem with flow.
Yeah, go ahead.
Tim, we have to be very careful, media people and those of us who talk about the problems of the country, the few of us who do, etc., not to fall into the trap of doing exactly what the government is doing and what the people are being led to do. To keep on saying the same thing over month after month, year after year, and so on, just saying the same thing so that it loses any effect whatsoever. Okay. Having said that, I say that because that crime problem didn't start yesterday. It has its history. Obviously, you don't have the time on the show to go through the history and what was done and what was not done and what may have created, exacerbated. But only a little while ago, Kenny Anthony publicly stated that the impacts situation, the part involving the police, where the police allegedly planted guns at fake crime scenes, where the facilitators of crime were the government ministers, etc. Now, it seems that is something that no talk show wants to dwell on. But I want to dwell on it because it seems we have done everything but dwell on that. I heard Ernest Hilaire, I heard the tape before you played it, but you played it a while ago. And he said in other parts of the tape, in effect, I'm not quoting directly, that the job of the government is to supply the police with what they need to fight crime. You heard him say that?
Yeah.
It's in the same tape.
Yes, I heard it.
And he suggests that he does, because he wouldn't say that and then say he didn't. Of course, I'm not going to say he said he did, but he did say the job is for the government's job. In fact, he was kind of picking up from what the Prime Minister said about his own involvement, about being a policeman and all that stuff. So he was saying the job of the government is to supply the police with the tools they need to fight crime. He also stated that it bothers him a hell of a lot to look around the islands and to see they have the level of crime and the kind of crime and so on and so on. And he put it down to something he doesn't know what's going on, what has happened to us. But only last year, Kenny Anthony again, the man was Prime Minister, he knows those things, He made the point that the successive governments had failed to ameliorate crime by what they were doing, and he suggested that it may be because they've all been doing the same thing, the same useless thing. Now, Tim, you talk about the dogs. Those dogs are like a part of a necklace, The dogs are very important. But as important as the dogs are, we have to have public trust, because it's out of public trust we're going to get information. Am I right?
Yes.
But if enough of the public believe that the facilitators of crime are government ministers, politicians, police officers, and businessmen, if they believe that, you really think they're going to come and make any kind of reports to you about anything, Tim?
They wouldn't. And people have been distrustful of the police even before Dr. Kenny Anthony made that statement. So his statement would have just exacerbated the situation further.
Okay, now, Richard Peter King has something on Facebook where he talks about having met Jacob Zuma, the African leader.
Yeah, former president of South Africa.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, and he said he was happy to meet him and all that, so proud to meet him. But looking back now, he says, I realized how naive and ignorant I was. And he goes on to say that in 1994, Zuma was accused of raping a friend's daughter. And Peter King is saying that should have, he was acquitted, by the way. Zuma was acquitted by the courts. But Peter King is saying, and I agree with him, that should have disqualified him from holding any kind of office, public office. Now, if that is true of Zuma, why is it not true here? And why is it not, has Peter King not made that very same point with regard to St. Lucia, our criminality? Don't forget, again, Kenny Anthony, I go to the highest authority. It is well known that Kenny Anthony said on television that we had 3 or 4 serial rapists among us. Do you recall that?
Yes, I can.
We have candidates who have actually appeared before the court on rape charges, running for elections. Now, if reputation is so important, and Kenny Anthony also said again in 2011 that we should be more discriminating in who we vote for. But of course, we vote for the people, the candidates that the parties offer. But nobody is talking about those things. We keep on repeating the same things despite the fact that crime keeps on getting worse. 8 homicides in 3 weeks, in about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
What has happened to all, what has come out of all those homicides in Beaufort? What has happened to all those homicides of last year? What has happened to the customs officer who was shot? What happened to the police officer who was killed in a van when he was doing some kind of moonlighting with another one? I could go on and on and on. What has happened to all these cases? We just move on, and when Newsspin comes on, the callers call on and talk about everything else but those realities that have been left alone. The reporters talk to ministers of government and don't put them up against the wall. Kenny Anthony made it very clear the reason why we have similar criminality in the islands is because we do the same thing about the criminality, which is basically photo opportunities. Look what happened recently when they went to Trinidad, right?
For the crime symposium.
All have the same where?
Yeah, the crime symposium, yeah.
Crime symposium in Trinidad. What more have you heard of that? What came out of that? We all knew, and the press reported it, that this was nothing more than a photo op and a PR deal, because the people from the various territories that these politicians represent know very well they were lying and whitewashing what they were saying. So that whether you like it or not, the solution to crime, the amelioration of crime in this country, has less to do with the government ministers and the police than it has to do with we as a people rebelling against this insult, against this don't give a damn kind of administration. Not just this one, I'm talking about all of them, the politicians. We have to stand up and understand that by now, that the most obvious reason politicians get into office is to fill their pockets. We don't even question the fact where things look like conflict of interest. We don't even question things that look like nepotism. We don't question at all government deciding to mess and tinker with this document called the Constitution. They mess with that as if it's playing Scrabble. Tim, I read something on Facebook by United PAC. I am inclined, I want to believe it's just propaganda. You remember when, right after Hilaire's case with Chastanet with the Privy Council.
Mm-hmm.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I recall Hilaire saying to the press, there's nothing more he can do about that. So it remains for him to have a talk with the Attorney General and change the law.
Yes.
Do you recall?
Yes, I remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I thought at the time, that might have been better not said. Because what you're saying is, man, I'm going to come and change the law to suit my purpose. So what I read in United PAC is more than that, that the Bar Association, I'm only quoting, paraphrasing the thing, because I tell you, I refuse to believe it's true, that the Bar Association is working with the government to tinker with the Constitution and change the law that requires that was involved in the Hilaire thing, change it, and make it retroactive.
Mm-hmm. I read it too. I read it too.
Eh?
Yes, I read it too.
I have never heard of any laws being retroactive. I think it is against every convention, human rights, the law, precedents, and everything. But who will stop this government from doing that?
If that's the case.
If that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
Who will stop them? We have a case where a judge recused himself from a case because he said there was political interference in the case. That judge, by coincidence, has been transferred to Grenada.
Yeah.
But we still have not gotten to the bottom of that hell of a statement by a judge that there was political interference in a case he was sitting on. All we want to talk about is foolishness, or who did that, what minister did that. The road is terrible. We know the road is terrible. But more important than the road is the human rights, the laws that govern us, the ministers of government operating like this is an autocracy.
Rick, I believe, Rick, that all the issues are important. And what you're doing there is you're proving that as citizens, we all have a role to play in highlighting those various issues of concern. So, I mean, many sections of the society...
But you will agree.
No, I don't think we could say one is more important than the other.
I know, I heard you.
But as a collective, what normally happens, Rick, as a collective is that we all play our part, so we deal with the issues wholesomely as individuals.
Tim, you will agree with me that some issues should take precedent over others. For example, you go tinkering with the Constitution just because you can or you say you can. That, to me, is more important than smooth, velvety roads. Roads are very important. But messing with our Constitution is miles more important than fixing the road. I am not saying the road should not be fixed. I am not saying the roads should not be complained about because they wreck cars, including mine. But things like the Constitution is the number one important thing we have in this country. And if we permit tinkering by convenience with the Constitution, then shut the hell about any damn road. Okay? That the government can say we'll fix the road when we're ready. Buzz off. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. But my point is that we run the risk of giving little importance to issues in the country that are affecting us, such as the roads and the crime and so on, if we want to, depending on what we deem to be the level of importance, we focus on issues as we go along the way, as opposed to a nation looking at this collectively. So you have your bar association, you have people who are legally trained, who should be speaking on matters relating to the Constitution. Those people have a passion for it, as well as human rights issues. But you have a number of other individuals that is not their forte, who will speak about things that, from their perspective, it is of immediate concern to them, such as the roads, such as high unemployment, such as crime. So when you in the final analysis, when you analyze everything, as responsible citizens who have a deep interest in a range of areas in our society, we end up inadvertently or deliberately addressing all the matters that are of concern to us. Newsspin will continue in just a moment with more of your calls and your WhatsApp messages. Somebody would have been 22 today, but unfortunately, he is not around to celebrate his birthday. And we'll be hearing from another individual who suggests that you do not pay your vehicle license fees as a form of protest with regard to the poor state of our roads.